Okay. We will make it available as soon as possible, and it should be hosted to the SAA YouTube channel. You should already be muted, but we know that technology is fickle. So if you accidentally get unmuted during the presentation portion, someone from our planning team will just go ahead and mute you. We want to respect the time and work of our speaker. There will be plenty of time afterwards to ask questions. And you can put your questions and comments in the chat. We'd love to hear from you, what you're doing at your archive. We also have an anonymous question form, and we'll put a link to that in the chat as well. And you can use that to send in questions anonymously for our Q&A portion. If you do so, just please make sure that you put in today's date so that we can flag it. So now I'm excited to introduce our speaker, Lotus Norton-Wisla. Lotus is the Digital and Community Outreach Archivist at Washington State University's Center for Digital Scholarship and Curation. She currently supports CDSC initiatives, including Mukurtu CMS and the Sustainable Heritage Network, and collaborates with WSU Manuscripts, Archives, and Special Collections team. She coordinated the Tribal Digital Stewardship Cohort Program from 2015 to 2020, and is now working with OCLC's Web Junction team to adapt the original curriculum into a free online self-guided digital stewardship training to be used by staff in tribal archives, libraries and museums, and rural libraries. Lotus also supports technology for the NSF-funded Culturally Responsive Indigenous Science Curriculum Project, working with teachers from the Coeur d'Alene tribe, Colville tribes, and Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs, along with WSU's College of Education and Native American programs. She received her MLIS from the University of Wisconsin-Madison, where she learned from teachers through the Convening Culture Keepers organization and the Tribal Libraries, Archives, and Museums program. I can't wait to learn from her presentation, so I'll let her take over from here. So Lotus, go ahead and share your screen when you're ready.
Okay. First of all, thank you so much, Rachel, and thank you to the rest of the planning team for this event. I'm excited to be here today with all of you. And I wanted to first share that I live and work on the homelands of the Nupu people, or the Nez Perce tribe, and the Palouse people, and I acknowledge their presence here since time immemorial, and their continuing connection to the land, to the water, and to their ancestors. And I'm grateful to the WSU Native American programs for preparing this statement that I shared. And today I'm going to discuss the main features and functions of Mukurtu, but I also want to provide some background about how and why Mukurtu was created, and the design and development philosophy that is ongoing. So I will go ahead and share my screen. And today I hope to not just show how Mukurtu works, but also why it works the way that it does. And I'll also be showing some examples of sites that are currently in use. Mukurtu is a free and open source content management system and community access platform, and it's built with specific needs of Indigenous communities in mind for curating, sharing, and managing digital cultural heritage materials. Mukurtu in Warramungu literally means dilly bag, and this comes from the language of the Warramungu Aboriginal community in Central Australia. Looking back several years, this is a picture of Warramungu elder Michael Jumpin Jones speaking with Dr. Kim Kristen in 2005. And Dr. Kristen is the director of the Mukurtu Project and the director of the CDSC as well. After a decade of Dr. Kristen working with the Warramungu community, Jumpin explained to her that Mukurtu, or a dilly bag, was where elders used to keep sacred items. The younger generations had to approach elders to open up and share the knowledge, and it was important that the elders could not be stingy, or that traditionally it was right to share the knowledge when they were asked by the younger generation. So in this way, Mukurtu as a platform was originally created and is still based in this idea of intergenerational sharing of knowledge and the reciprocal relationships that already existed in the community. So like the dilly bag, Mukurtu is meant to be a safekeeping place. And it's a place where cultural belongings and the knowledge that is associated with those belongings can be accessed and used in ways that meet up with existing local protocols, values, and social norms. This is a screenshot of the first version of Mukurtu, the Wumparani Kari archive, which was a standalone digital archive. And that was launched in 2007. And it was only accessible in person on the computer at the Ninkanunu Arts and Culture Center. So in the screenshot, you can see there's the option to search the public archive, search the materials that would be available publicly, or then also to the right bottom of the screen, you can see if you had a username and password to the archive, you could log in there. Now, fast forwarding 15 years to today, after its original standalone version, Mukurtu now as a platform specifically addresses issues of access, attribution, and accountability within both its core functions that are available and the architecture of the platform. And Mukurtu is used by both Indigenous and non-Indigenous communities around the world. And these are folks who want a platform that provides control over how to make content available and the ability to provide multiple and varied narrations, as well as being able to define circulation both within and outside of Western intellectual property laws. Mukurtu CMS, the platform, and the software code is managed by our team at Washington State University at WSU. And we develop and maintain the code, and we also provide support, outreach, and training. So a little bit more about each of those. Our free support includes hours and hours, hundreds of hours of video tutorials. We have screencasts and documentation, text documentation on how to use the software and the latest updates as well. And we have our support team members who respond to emails daily. We usually try to get back to people within 2 days about. And this support also includes one-on-one or group virtual training sessions. So there's a lot of different options through our small team. And I'll also have my colleagues share a link to a 30-minute webinar video that was done earlier this year by my colleague, Michael Wynn. So this would be a good short overview to share with colleagues if you're interested. Then training. So beyond what's available on our support site and through our support email, we also regularly host webinars like this one, covering the basics of using Mukurtu. And we also provide sometimes when we have, the staff time available, we're able to provide on-site training for communities and institutions just for the cost of travel, accommodation, and the standard per diem. And then finally, at times, we do partner on grant-funded projects to provide more robust and targeted training. So that, definitely requires more planning and more notice ahead of time, but that's something that has been part of Mukurtu for its lifetime. And then the final piece is development. So all of the development with Mukurtu happens through our community software development model. And that begins with community engagements. And, those can take many forms through, grant funded projects and things like that. And we look at that feedback, we look at that, the needs or wants specified, and then we would take that to the larger Mukurtu community for feedback to make sure that we're creating something that's flexible to meet multiple user groups. So there are also 4 core features within Mukurtu that make it unique and that provide these avenues for ethical stewardship, circulation, and access. And the first is cultural protocols. And cultural protocols are really the heart and soul of Mukurtu. They are what allow communities to manage the circulation and access to materials and the knowledge that goes along with those materials. And the protocols are 100% customizable. So just adaptable to the local needs of each community using the software.
Hey,
Next,
Lotus.
yes.
Sorry to jump in real quick. I think that your Zoom toolbar is covering a portion of your presentation window.
Oh, so I could just go ahead and move that, huh? Is that better?
Nope, it's still showing up. Oh yeah, it's better. It's good.
Okay, thank you so much. Did not realize that. Okay, so getting back to the round trip suite of tools, the tools provide workflows for import and export of metadata and media. They allow for digital return and exchange with other communities and institutions. And it's important to note too that the community using the Mukurtu site can choose. Sorry, is there a mute that maybe needs to happen?
Yeah, sorry. I got it.
Thank you, Diana.
There's 103 folks here. It's great, but makes it hard to find people.
Definitely. Wasn't sure if it was on my end. Thank you everyone for being here. So I was just explaining that the round trip suite of features, when a community using a Mukurtu site is using those suite of features, they can actually decide which metadata that they want to share out with institutions or researchers or whoever they'd be sharing with, and then what they want to maintain just for local use. So you're able to select the metadata that would be exported. And then the third core feature is community records. And these are what allows for multiple and layered narratives for any item in Mukurtu. And this is a very popular feature, and I'll be sharing some examples of community records in a few minutes. And then finally, Mukurtu supports traditional knowledge labels, and TK labels allow Indigenous communities to provide educational information about proper access and use of materials that are in the public domain or owned by third parties especially. And then in addition to these core features, all Mukurtu sites have 3 elements that provide a framework to be used to create, share, and describe content. So the 3 elements are communities, cultural protocols, and categories. And around the Mukurtu team, we often call them the 3 Cs. And these form the backbone of any Mukurtu site. And they're the first things that have to be set up and discussed and planned to be able to run a Mukurtu site. So a quick overview, in Mukurtu, communities are the who. So they are the groups of contributors and users. And then cultural protocols are the how of Mukurtu. They are how sharing and access is managed. And then categories are the what of Mukurtu. They are describing and grouping content on the site. And communities can be anywhere from 2 people to 200 people. They provide content or knowledge or maybe both. So taking an example like from our institution, projects that we manage in our institution via Mukurtu, the WSU libraries could be one community, like a university library might be providing those digitized photos as a community. And then a local Native American community that is working in partnership with WSU might provide knowledge about the photographs. So in each of those cases, the university library and the Native American community, they could both be communities on a site. And through that, each member of a community might have different roles and responsibilities on a site. So Mukurtu has an extensive list of user roles and responsibilities, and and the way that they overlap helps ensure that each user has access to exactly the content that they are supposed to. So I'm going to share just a kind of a sneak peek of those Mukurtu roles and responsibilities, but just very broadly, there's kind of two sets of those user roles. There's the site-wide user roles, which are largely site setup, maintenance, making sure the look and feel of the site is in line with what you want. And then there's the group user roles, which is this larger middle section of different types of roles. And these are all built to manage the content within the site. So like I was saying, users can have different combinations of these different roles, and that's just depending on their access and their responsibilities. And we have many more resources on this topic of the user roles, more graphics as well, for users to dig into once they're kind of at that stage to get to know that more. But this is just kind of a visual way of explaining that there are many roles on a Mukurtu site, and that is what helps manage the access, and that there's site-wide roles and then the group user roles. So going back to the 3 C's, the cultural protocols are the how of Mukurtu, and they are how users access content provided by contributors. So some common protocols that we have seen in working with Indigenous communities are gender, clans, families, seasonal, sacred, tribal citizens, or community members only. And then really importantly, public is a protocol too, or open. Any form of access needs to be defined through a cultural protocol. So there's not a default open or public. You have to set that up and assign things to it to make them open or public. And then some other common uses for protocols would be more workflow oriented, like if there's a staging protocol, a vetting protocol, or a staff use only protocol, those are all possibilities. And it's important to remember that protocols are decided by the user groups, by the people managing the site. There's no prepackaged protocols that you just slap on your site. It's all user defined, which is time consuming to figure out what will the appropriate protocols be, but it's important to do that work in a slow, methodical way. And like the communities, protocols are very flexible, and some communities would have many protocols, and then other communities might have only a few protocols. And each and every user will be enrolled as a member in selected protocols. So different users will have different membership depending on what they should be able to access. And then the last of the 3 C's is categories. And categories define what is meaningful to users. They are a discovery tool to organize and define the materials within Mukurtu, and this helps people search and browse content on the sites. So in the same way that each Mukurtu site has those unique communities and unique cultural protocols, each site will also have unique categories. And in Mukurtu, we do not default to existing controlled vocabularies because the scope and content and audience of every Mukurtu site is varied and different. So we do find that a lot of sites end up with like 10 to 15 categories, and we do recommend that you might keep it to that number. And it does just depend on the content and the user needs, but they're usually accessible terms and avoiding things that are too technical or too jargon filled. So really making sure that it is meaningful to users through the categories. And then there's also keywords to further refine access and organization. And then the 3 C's, those communities, cultural protocols, and categories, those are how content is organized on a Mukurtu site. So one of the main pieces of content are digital heritage items, or DH items. So at the very basics, a DH item is a combination of media and metadata. There are some different options within DH items to avoid the idea of just one true record to really allow for more context and more relationships with other content on the site, as well as layered narratives through the community records. And DH items can be built around any media type: images, audio, video, documents. And the metadata scheme is an extended Dublin core. And that's what we call Mukurtu core. And I'm going to start to move now into examples for the rest of the presentation. And the first example I'm going to show is a very large site with several contributors. So keeping that in mind for the next few slides, that this is a large project. So this is the Plateau People's web portal. This is the front page of the Plateau People's web portal. And this is a collaboration between 8 tribes and nations in the Northwest region, as well as Washington State University, the Smithsonian Institution, the Library of Congress, and state and regional collecting institutions and universities. So the portal has been an ongoing project for over a decade, and it's been built on relationships that started long before like this specific project. And those were started through WSU's Native American programs, the Office of Tribal Relations, and the Native American Advisory Board to the President, along with the WSU libraries and the College of Arts and Sciences. So within the portal, the tribes and nations that you see on the front page, they are each communities within the site, and each community has their own tribal path and protocols within the site, and they are managed by tribal representatives. And I want to mention too that the About page for the Plateau People's web portal goes into more depth into the projects and relationships. And we publicly share the statement of commitment that is used for this project. And this is, a very large project based on a lot of relationships, and it's been going on for over 12 years now. So, it's very very developed, and there's a lot of content here. So I would definitely recommend exploring it to see a Mukurtu site that uses so many of the different Mukurtu features. And I also wanted to mention that I saw some of the tribal representatives from the Plateau People's web portal on the call today. So thank you for being here. So looking at the Plateau People's web portal, I'm first going to take a look at what are the 3 Cs, what are the communities, cultural protocols, and categories on the portal. So this is a view of just a list of the protocols and the communities as well. So first we can look at some of the protocols for the American Philosophical Society. So that is one of the national partners on the portal, and they contribute content to the site that are chosen by the tribal representatives. And you can see that they have 2 protocols within this project, and there's the public access protocol and the under review protocol. So on this project and others, we see a lot of non-Indigenous institutions use this so that they can add the tribal representatives or community members to that protocol to be able to view the content and vet it before they are ever made visible to the public. So that mechanism means that Mukurtu isn't just the forward-facing platform, isn't just the sharing platform for audiences, but also allows this management behind the scenes through this vetting process. And then further down the page, you can see an example of one of the tribal paths, one of the tribal communities represented. So the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs, they have 3 protocols: the community only, community public access, and then the Warm Springs training community only. So you can see that's the community only, and then for a public audience, and then for a staff training audience. And then finally, the categories in the Plateau People's web portal. There are 12 categories on the site. And because this site has multiple tribal representatives working together. I just wanted to mention that this was a very long process to come to these categories for those, working towards that goal. And I remembered that the first round of categories, the first set of categories that were created, that took about a year in the early days of the project to come to. So just bringing that up as an example of those 3 C's, and that it, especially if working with multiple communities and institutions, it can really take a long time to discuss and set up things for the Mukurtu site to function in the way that the partners want it to. Okay, moving on to some more specific examples. Today, I wanted to share some content on the portal that's actually a little bit newer. This is the Spalding Allen collection, which is owned by the Nez Perce tribe, and it was purchased back in the 1990s, and right now it's on loan to the Nez Perce National Historical Park. So you can read more on the collection page about the history of that collection and what this digital content is. But the presence of these materials and knowledge on the portal is through a collaboration with Nakia Williamson-Cloud and Josiah Pinkham and Dr. Trevor James Bond at WSU, along with other Nimipu voices. So if we scroll down on the collection page, we can see some of the items, and we can see both photographs from the collection itself, as well as present day drawings. And at this point, I am going to share a different screen because I want to show you a live demo of this item. Okay, so as you can see, the title of this item is Man's Shirt, Nez Perce. And this is an example of an item that has multiple community records. And as you can see, both of the community records, the tabs across the top here, are both part of the Nimipu community or Nez Perce community. So scrolling down, we can see that there are multiple media items on this DH item. There are 3 different photographs of this shirt, which show the shirt as a whole, and then some of the details, some of the quill work and the beading. So scrolling down, along the right side, we can see some of the metadata that has been added, including the community and protocol. And for this item, the protocol of public access was chosen. And then you can also see the category and keywords, as well as the collection that this is a part of, and some other basic metadata. And if we look below the images, below the media, then we can see the summary as well as a cultural narrative field. And this item in particular and the materials within this collection are very content rich. The cultural narrative and traditional knowledge fields have been really filled out with both audio clips, with both media and text. So that's not typical of every item on the Plateau People's Web portal, but this is a great example of really taking full advantage of those different fields with not only text, but also media. So videos, audio, images can all be placed within these rich text fields. So I'm going to scroll down, and I would love to really, dig into each part of this, but I'm just going to show one little excerpt for now. And I'd encourage you to explore this more. But I'm going to play a clip of Josiah Black Eagle Pinkham speaking about transgenerational interpretation related to this shirt.
A shirt like this also had, on the other side of the transgenerational interpretation, it had numerous women that were involved in the process. So his sister may have tanned the hide, his wife may have sat down with his mother and did the beadwork together while they're by the fireplace, and they would have been trading stories and talking and doing different things, I mean, that's where the real value is in looking at these things. You think to yourself, those people didn't have an easy lifestyle the way that I have now. Mm-hmm. But still they made things that were just absolutely stunning. Yeah. And I look at those things and I think, man, that is just inspirational. That They did that without light bulbs. They did that without cars.
So that was just one of the many audio clips that Josiah Pinkham has shared in the conversations with Trevor Bond. And you can see below that, Nikia Williamson Cloud also has some thoughts to share. And the way that this has been set up, you can also read the description while you're listening to the audio. So really excited to share this content. It's really rich, and the generosity of these Nimipu people to share this information. So I'm also going to just go ahead and go back up to the top of the screen and tab over to the second community record that is here. And just the way that this has been organized, both of the community records are from Nimipu, from the community. But for example, if this was a different item, if maybe it was something that pertained to multiple communities, to multiple tribes and nations in the region, there could be many more tabs, but obviously this is very much Nimipu based. So scrolling down on the second community tab, I'm going to also share just an excerpt of this video. So this is Nikia Williamson Cloud speaking about the use of quill work in the Spalding Allen collection. So I'll play this.
The ornamentation is very unique in that fairly early on, our people had started to shift from quillwork decoration, like these strips, which is what you'll see on men's leggings as well as men's shirts, these strips that go down near the seams. And later on, they converted and utilized and incorporated various glass beads that were imported. But the quillwork ones, which is often associated with the plains, is what's being done here, and it's a certain type of quillwork. I think it's not the plated quillwork; it's just a simple kind of band quillwork. But quillwork was done here and was practiced here, but it was because we had access to some of the trade goods that they converted to beads fairly early on, and we had the means to be able to trade for those particular items. But definitely the word satsasnin, quilled or decorated with porcupine quills, that was something that was practiced here, definitely to the contrary of what many of the quote unquote ethnographers and academics who disassociate many of these quilled items from the Plateau and from the Nez Perce people, and have a tendency to identify them with the quillwork traditions that are more widely known because they were more widely written about over in the plains, like with the Cheyenne and Sioux and other tribes. But prior to the arrival of beads, our people, just like a lot of people who had access to the resource, decorated their clothing and other types of items with quills. And it's not a question really of it's not really a question of choice. It's a question of what was available to us. It was a question of our laws, in which, again, what's tied us to this land. We ate salmon because salmon were in our rivers. We utilized buckskin because that's what was given to us in the beginning. We utilized porcupines, their quills, for decoration because they were here and they provided themselves for that purpose as well as other purposes. So
I'll pause that for now, but again, definitely check out this collection of materials that these folks have worked on. One other brief item I wanted to share through the Plateau People's web portal is just another example of an item with multiple community records. So I'll tab over to this root gathering bag. And I won't go so far into this because I do have other examples, but I just wanted to share another configuration that is maybe more common when it is an item that is being a collaboration between a external institution and a tribe selecting content from that institution. So this is a root gathering bag that is stored at the Northwest Museum of Arts and Culture. And then the tab to the right is the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs. And they've given the item a new title. And there's also a lot of other information that's been added through the cultural narrative via text, as well as a video in the traditional knowledge field. So just showing another configuration that is more typical when it is that selection process from an external institution, rather than the example that I first shared from the Niuhu people, where this collection belongs to the Nez Perce tribe, but is just on loan to the Nez Perce National Historic Park. So a lot of different examples of collaboration within this one site. Okay, going back to slides. Before I move on to some other examples, I want to share a little bit more about the Plateau People's web portal, just thinking about that collaboration is longstanding between the 8 tribes and nations that are part of it now, and then WSU as well as the external institutions, and that, you know, the project idea, the charge really came from the Native American Advisory Board to the president, you know, over a decade ago, and the priority was really for the tribes to make available content to their tribal community members. So that is always the focus that the tribal representatives are bringing to the project, and the collaborations that they engage in with WSU and other institutions. So those first 2 examples, you know, those were some media items that were varied. So there was text, there was also video, also audio and images. So I liked those first few examples to just show the range that's available. And I also want to share a little bit more about the traditional knowledge labels, which are a metadata field option in Mukurtu. So the traditional knowledge labels, or the TK labels, are just one part of the local context initiative directed by Dr. Jane Anderson, Dr. Kim Kristen, Maui Hudson, and James Francis. The local context project focuses on the unique needs faced by Indigenous people who need to manage and share and steward their intellectual and cultural property within digital environments. And this initiative seeks to educate library professionals, collectors, curators, and academics about the considerations that Indigenous cultural heritage materials bring to the ideas of open access and the appropriate reuse of digital materials. So the TK labels, these are designed primarily to be built to be a public-facing educational tool used by Indigenous communities, and especially in cases where the legal copyright is held by someone else or the item is in the public domain. The TK labels provide additional context and information to help people make informed and ethical decisions about use of materials. There are currently 18 TK labels, and each community that chooses to use the labels only needs to work with the ones that are relevant to them and to their materials. And each different label addresses various aspects of community needs for circulation, use, and reuse of digital materials. And as one example, the attribution, which you can see circled here, the attribution TK label is one of the most commonly used labels, And it's generally used when items might not be attributed to the community of origin, or they might be misattributed. For example, if a song recording was donated to an archive, the archive may be the legal owner. And the attribution label is a space for that community to say, no, because of the impact of copyright, we technically don't own this song. However, it is our cultural heritage. And you, as the viewer, we ask that you credit and attribute us as if you do end up using it to follow that. Or looking at another example, the community voice label. A tribal library, archive, or museum might use a label like that to indicate that they are seeking feedback or comments or narration from community members. So that's a chance to say, we would like your voice, we would like your help. And then on the local context site, if you click on an individual TK label, then you come to this screen, which is for the example of the attribution label. You would see this why use the label, explaining, what are the uses of this label. And then you also see at the bottom of the screen, the TK label template text. So these are really meant to be customized, but there is the template text to get started. And then I know that, some of the people in the audience are definitely from an institutional context, a non-Indigenous institution. So just a reminder that TK labels are designed for use by communities who are working with or representing their own cultural heritage. On the other hand, the cultural institution notices, the CI notices, these are specifically for non-Indigenous institutions to use when they want to collaborate with Indigenous communities but need more information. So this is a relatively new project, but there are two notices. There's open to collaborate and attribution incomplete. And they can be added to items or to whole collections by institutions to signal to Indigenous communities that they're open for input and that they want to provide more accurate attribution. So if this is intriguing to you, I would definitely say look at the local context website. There's a whole usage guide that's pretty specific, as well as an implementation packet to download. So definitely take a look for those specific instructions. And there are a couple examples though, even though it's a pretty new project. I wanted to share, this is at the American Philosophical Society, and they actually have it just on their homepage, like on their whole homepage for the Center for Native American and Indigenous Research. Another example is here at the Simon Fraser University Digitized Collections, where they have it on a specific collection and have that context within there. And then this is at the Abbey Museum. They are using them on a specific item, which they believe the attribution is incomplete, and they would like to reach out for assistance with this. So those are just some examples, and that there's definitely a lot more to investigate and learn about those topics, but I did want to share them as something to think about. And again, the TK labels, you're able to use those directly in Mukurtu. The CI labels, that is a different process, and you'd want to go to localcontexts.org to explore that more. Okay, and now I'm going to move back into examples. And this is an example of a community using Mukurtu, the TK labels, and collaboration, most definitely. So over the last 5 years, the Passamaquoddy tribe has worked with WSU and the Library of Congress on the Ancestral Voices project. And this project aimed to restore, identify attribution, and provide access protocols to 31 original wax cylinder recordings, which were recorded by Jesse Walter Fuchs in 1890. So this work was primarily the labor of the Passamaquoddy community in doing this listening and sharing of the recordings within their community, and then making decisions about how to expand and share the recordings appropriately. And after 2 years of this work, they created a Mukurtu site, which you can see on my screen. So this is the Passamaquoddy peoples at home on the ocean and lakes, which brings the viewer into the importance of the waters, the lands, and the people that these songs and stories are a part of. And for the returned wax cylinders, they created a collection on their site. And while there were 31 original digital files from those original wax cylinders located at the Library of Congress, on the site, the public collection only contains 12 of those recordings. And then looking at the item level at a DH item, you can see that the songs have actually been retitled in Passamaquoddy. And then in this case, you can also see that a community public access protocol has been added. And otherwise, we wouldn't be able to see this. We wouldn't be able to see, or we wouldn't share this. And as we scroll down the page, we can also see the community metadata. So again, that cultural narrative field, that traditional knowledge field, they've all been, very much expanded. And under the creator field, you can see the tribal members, the Passamaquoddy tribal members who are listed as the creators. And there are also 3 TK labels, and extended cultural narrative and traditional knowledge, all added by multiple community members. And also in this Ancestral Voices project, after this process of community vetting of the materials happened, really looking at access concerns and the added knowledge, some of the materials, but not all of the materials, were returned, but this time back to the Library of Congress for the inclusion in the library's catalog records. So I'll show that as well. So this is a screenshot from the Library of Congress catalog, and you can see that the metadata has been updated. The updated title with the Passamaquoddy names in the Passamaquoddy language. And there are also the 3 TK labels at the bottom right of the screen. You can see the attribution, the outreach, and the non-commercial TK labels, which have been customized by the Passamaquoddy people to define exactly how those materials should be cited and circulated. The next example I'm going to share is from the Hana Heritage Foundation, which represents Hana Totem shareholders. And this community wanted to use Mukurtu to provide access to their archival materials, and they were being held in their offices in Juneau. And they started with some already digitized materials, but they were also in the process of digitizing new materials. So when you scroll down from the front page, looking further down, then you can see that they use the featured content section to showcase some of their original goals and the original focus of the site. So some of those were traditional artists and the historic fishing fleet, as well as major historical events like a fire that happened in 1914, and then also honoring veterans in their community. So these, this use of the front page and the featured content, this can really drive users to go to select items, or it can also be used with collections too. And then looking at more digital heritage items, this is one of the historic photographs related to fishing. And you can see a few different fields here. You can see the summary and description are used. The people field is at the bottom of the screen, and you can see there that that's actually an indexed field. So anyone who is listed within that field, you can click on their name and then be able to see all the content that is also tagged with their name. On the right side of the screen, you can see the traditional knowledge labels for non-commercial use and community voice. And also you can see the Creative Commons license that was used within this. And then you can see at the top of the screen, this is a community record. There are 2 community records as part of this DH item. So if we look over, we can see that the second tab is the community record for the Glacier Bay National Park Service, because this item was the result of a collaboration of a book project from the Glacier Bay National Park Service. And through reaching out, the director of the Hana Heritage Heritage Foundation was able to add the items to the site and reach an agreement on how the metadata would be displayed. So you can see an example of that. You can also see towards the bottom of the screen, there's the related content. So that's an example of how different pieces of content, in this case, different digital heritage items, can be related together. And then I believe this is my last example. There's many more examples out there. You can definitely see them on our Mukurtu showcase page, but this is just one more example I wanted to share of just a front page of a Mukurtu site. This is from the Pokagon Band of Potawatomi. This site name is Wikwebchigan. And on this site, I just wanted to share that they have this form. They have a statement that says most of our content on our site is not accessible to the public, and that Pokagon citizens may request an account to view all the content on the site. So the way that people request an account is just by completing a form, completing an external form, which goes back to the site manager, and they can manage the site access accordingly. So I just wanted to provide that as an example, because that's a big question that we have in Mukurtu support, is like, how do we manage our users? How do we manage our site? And, for some people, it's in this way of having an external form that then can be processed like individually by staff, whereas other people might have a totally different approach. But definitely wanted to share that. And, for this site, one of the goals of the site was specifically really wanting to reach members of the tribe, the Pokagon Band, who were, had moved or were dispersed throughout the US. So that is just one more example of a site. And you can also access this site as well as the Huna Heritage Foundation site through the showcase tab on the mukurtu.org website. So starting to wrap up, I also just wanted to share again about Mukurtu support. So Mukurtu support, our Mukurtu support site, as well as email, it's a fantastic resource for Mukurtu beginners, as well as seasoned users. But this is where we keep videos, text and screenshot instructions, and other resources to support the use of Mukurtu. So, if you are interested in Mukurtu, I would definitely recommend going to our support site. There's like the first two blocks here, the first two sections about Mukurtu CMS and the webinars. Those are fantastic for just getting to know Mukurtu more. There's also some other things on the support site that I think folks might be interested in. There is a document listing all of the metadata fields. So that might be helpful to you as you're taking a look. And then always that we have a Mukurtu support email. So that's support@mukurtu.org. And on the Mukurtu website, the general Mukurtu website, there's a link to sign up for our newsletter. That's also a great place to get information, especially about updates. And then a final mention that we do have a demo site. So if you're interested in just kind of poking around, seeing how things work in a sandbox environment, we do have that available. And again, through the Mukurtu site, you can get access to that, request access to that. And then finally, I want to share a little bit about getting Mukurtu. So there are two ways. You can either download from GitHub yourself and set up on your own internal server, or you have the option of a hosted site. And this is all on our mukurtu.org website under the Get tab. But there's more information about either of these two options. So on the right side, you can see you can download Mukurtu CMS from GitHub. The code is all open source and available if you're interested in running it yourself. Or if you're looking to host externally, you could definitely consider Reclaim hosting. So we do have a link out to Reclaim hosting. They have a one-click install of Mukurtu, but folks also definitely use other hosting sites if you have something else in place. So with that, I'm going to wrap up the presentation part of today. And just to say thank you so much for watching. And then here's the links to the mukurtu.org website, as well as our support email, if you'd like to follow up with either of those. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I think we will move into questions.
Wow, thank you so much, Lotus. That was such a fantastic presentation. I loved seeing all the examples of Mukurtu sites that are out there. It really does seem like there's so many ways that you could take this, depending on what your needs are. So yeah, we're going to go and get into the Q&A portion. We have a couple, I guess, moderated questions ready to go to give everyone time to come up with their own questions. You can put that in the chat, or again, we have a anonymous Google form that you can submit and we'll get those answered as well. Okay, so Lotus, what would you consider to be the perfect use case for Mukurtu implementation?
I love your quotation marks there. So I think one thing that we always think about with a question like that is that there just are so many different uses of Mukurtu. Like definitely the examples I shared, there's a lot of Indigenous communities using Mukurtu, and there's a lot of partnerships between Indigenous communities and the external institutions that they would choose to do projects with. But also universities. We have a lot of users who are at universities, working with Indigenous communities as well. And then also folks at universities or other community organizations who might not be Indigenous communities, but also find the features helpful to their projects or their needs, especially the cultural protocols and being able to have that, granular level of access. And I was actually talking to one of my colleagues about this, about like what's perfect, what's not perfect for Mukurtu. And we started thinking about like, what are some of the things that might not be the best fit for Mukurtu projects or institutions. And I think one thing was just like, if you just don't have the need for Mukurtu's features, the unique features of Mukurtu, if another platform works better for you, then definitely that's maybe the way to go. Another question or another thing to think about would be if you just have a lack of staff or resources to be able to, run a Mukurtu site, because it does take management. It does take a lot of, thought to set it up, and then the day-to-day management and uploading as well. So really, thinking that through about, do we have the staff? Do we have the time to work on this? And also, one other consideration, and this would be for like non-Indigenous institutions who are like seeking to work with Indigenous communities, but maybe are, haven't really started yet. Something that my colleague shared with me was just thinking about, that if you're interested in using Mukurtu and interested in working with communities, like those things should go hand in hand, or the relationships should be happening first before like a project or a website idea even comes into the conversation. So those were some of the thoughts that I was having over the last week on this one. But it's definitely like there's a wide range of Mukurtu users, and again, I would suggest checking out the showcase tab on the Mukurtu website, because that gives a range of different types of websites, where it's like, a really large website with so many different parts versus something where it might have more of a specific goal. So lots of range out there.
Great, yeah. Do you know of use cases where Mukurtu is integrated with another archive system, such as ArchiveSpace?
So no automated integration, nothing automatic with something like ArchiveSpace or other archive systems. I do want to mention that there is just some integration of things like Vimeo or YouTube, like the video that I played as an example that was hosted on Vimeo, and then linked into, embedded into the DH item. So just thinking about media, we do have a little bit of integration there, but again, that's not archival systems. Definitely want to think about the fact that of course, Mukurtu can be used in addition to other archival systems, like as another layer, as the sharing platform. And that's definitely something that's in place at WSU. We definitely have other platforms within the WSU libraries in addition to Mukurtu, and definitely like thinking about it as, you know, different purposes for different platforms. And then finally, the round trip features. So if someone is looking at, you know, archive space or looking at another content management system that they use and wants to, you know, make them work together, there is import and export available, and import into Mukurtu is through a CSV spreadsheet. So it's just a matter of crosswalking, getting the metadata out of your other system and crosswalking it and then importing it into Mukurtu. So a couple different answers for that, but no, there's no automatic integration.
Got it. All right, and then one more moderated question, and then we'll get to our fantastic audience questions. What advice would you give to folks who want to implement Mukurtu but have higher ups who are skeptical about it? How can folks best advocate for Mukurtu implementation?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really great question. That was something that I was again thinking about, like what is the skepticism there, like, because that could be coming from so many different places, and I think it's important to like, yeah, understand where it's coming from, because for example, if it's coming from a place of like, you know, we don't have the staff, we don't have enough staff time to work on this, or we don't have the infrastructure to be able to run this because, you know, maybe we want to host it internally, but we can't do that yet, that kind of thing, would be to like definitely address those things and take into account like how much time would it take and what is our plan for implementing this. But on the other hand, you know, if it's something that would be manageable, but higher ups might just be uncertain of what it is, what it does, I would definitely say to show examples. So maybe even, you know, show some of the examples that I shared today. Also, you know, a lot of the sites that are on our showcase, for example, like you can find the contact information of the site managers. They'll often like have that at the bottom of their website or somewhere else on their website. So like contacting others, maybe if it's a similar institution to yours, and just seeing, you know, how did they do it? What were their challenges? What were their successes? I think that kind of information can be really helpful. Also that there's the demo site, the Mukurtu demo, where you could potentially, you know, like create some test content and then be able to show what you're thinking, show what your plan is, show the possibilities. So another thing would be to work with your colleagues and work with your higher ups to make sure that it is manageable, and that maybe you don't start with the big idea first, maybe you start with the smaller ideas as like a pilot project, and really build that comfort and like respect the boundaries that, you know, might be changed in the future. So those are a few ideas. And just in terms of like, again, like if it's maybe a non-Indigenous institution, and the discomfort or the hesitation is around even just like outreach and working with Indigenous communities, I wonder about, you know, what are guidelines and practices in the field that can be shared, the protocols for Native American archival materials, you know, work being done in so many ways in the field, you know, how can those conversations be started at the institution, and like not trying to just skip ahead to, you know, a big digital project when maybe there's some other things that should be discussed and put in place first.
Yes, absolutely. Great advice. So I'm gonna ask one of our anonymous questions. How many years will this platform be upkept and available online?
Yeah, so Mukurtu, we have a commitment at Washington State University to support Mukurtu CMS as a platform. So through the Center for Digital Scholarship and Curation, we have our director as well as our co-directors, on board, permanent faculty who are, very committed to this platform. So yeah, that would be my answer, is that there's no end date in sight. We do, do a lot of the development through grant funded projects. So, creating new features and things like that, that is kind of more dependent on pursuing those grant funds and things like that. But the platform in general, that is, supported institutionally, as well as through, the users.
That is certainly very encouraging, encouraging to hear. It sounds like it's going to be around for a while. Good. So we had a question in the chat from Helen Wong Smith. How much support does your institutional IT department give? And I think she was referring to the audio clips for the Plateau People's website.
Yeah, that is a great question. I saw that come up when I was showing the examples. So for the specific examples I shared, I'll just kind of go through how that came about, just because that's a little bit different than some of the other ones. But because Dr. Trevor Bond, who is the head of the Manuscripts Archives and Special Collections, he was very involved in that, and that's part of his research and scholarship as well. Is that collaboration with the folks that you saw. And so that was part of like a long-standing relationship and long-standing work between them. So the original audio recordings were made by Trevor as they were having these conversations years ago. And then more recently, the idea to share them on the Plateau People's web portal came about. And the transcription, I know that MASC, the department, I believe, had funds within their budget to outsource that transcription work. And then probably the audio clips, I think, our graduate assistants in the CDSC helped with doing some very simple audio editing to chop those up. And then the more recent addition was the second community record tab on that item, and that was the video. So Trevor was able to do that via Zoom, recording the video. And then we also, again, had our graduate assistant in the CDSC edit the video for him and add the lower third and things like that. So that one, I think, is trying to just use the existing resources at WSU, as well as the one outsourcing piece for the transcription. However, with some of the other materials on the portal, we've definitely utilized grant funds. So there was a project with the root gathering bag, one of the examples I showed. That project was definitely through grant funding to work with a media company to produce and edit those videos. And then more recently, for things like that, we've worked with our academic outreach and innovation department on campus for that. So lots of creative budgeting and use of grant funds by our directors, and more recently also the management and uploading of those types of things through project staff at the CDSC. Yeah, I think that's about the answer for now, but it's definitely something to really think about, is that all takes time, the processing of the audio and the images and the videos.
Yeah, it definitely seems like a team effort. I know just from seeing the example on your presentation, there's a lot of great context there, though. So I think there's an argument in support of taking the time to be very be thorough in how you're describing things and how you're connecting all your pieces together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one other just like cost involved. For example, with the ladies from the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs, the elders who provided both the text and video content as part of the grant budgets, writing in the compensation for honoraria and things like that to make sure to compensate community members for their time as well. So just that's another thing that does go into the media, even though it's not like the technical aspect. And sorry, one other piece of, I was just thinking about the media. We also, store those on our WSU libraries server. We have a CDSC server. So obviously our IT department helps with managing that.
Fantastic. Yeah. Again, a big group effort, and there's costs for your person's time and knowledge and experiences. So yeah, we'll bounce back to an anonymous question. You mentioned that tribal representatives generally manage content. How have refugee communities using Mukurtu decided on how to or who will manage content on Mukurtu when displaced people have many different priorities for the remaining non-displaced communities than the remaining non-displaced community members have?
That's a really great question. I don't think I have like I haven't worked specifically with folks working on a project like that. Not to say that that hasn't been in the works, of course. So yeah, I would definitely say it kind of comes to like the management of the project and folks working together to balance multiple priorities. So I don't have a great answer for that. I think perhaps my colleague is on the line as well. I don't know if he has any input just of folks that he's worked with directly through Mukurtu support. Yeah, is this question written down, Rachel?
It is one of the anonymous questions.
Yeah, if you could say it over again. And sorry, Michael, to put you on the spot, but I just saw you were there.
You mentioned that tribal representatives generally manage content. How have refugee communities using Mukurtu decided on how to or who will manage the content when displaced people have many differing priorities than the non-displaced community members?
Thank you for repeating that. Feel free to chime in, Michael, but I also have some thoughts now that I've seen the question again.
Yeah, I can just weigh in very briefly. And I mean, if we're talking about, sorry, I'm just thinking about the terminology between refugee and especially if we're talking about Native communities. I mean, one sense is if we're looking at a lot of the Native Indigenous communities here have community members everywhere, locally and also scattered across the country and across the world. I would say in a lot of cases, those types of sites, especially the sites in Mukurtu was a good example, it really is intended to be a space for outreach and for community members who don't live locally to be able to connect. A lot of those times, those sites are managed through a cultural heritage center, museum, archival program within the community, within the tribal governance structure in some capacity. So often those sort of management and determination roles fall to people with that already sort of connection to the formal body. That's the short answer there, I think. Yeah, I'll let you take more if you have more thoughts on that, Lotus.
Yeah, I think I got kind of hung up on like, is there a specific example of this exact site or something like that? But I appreciate that answer, Michael. Thank you so much for sharing. And I just wanted to mention, like, I think just the piece of like many differing priorities. I think that is a case with so many communities using Mukurtu. So I think people definitely address that in different ways of just making sure to get multiple perspectives and voices within the decision-making group. So whether that's like an advisory board or like a community committee, community culture committee or something like that, where it's like really trying to understand multiple perspectives and then bring that into the project. So yeah, and like Michael said, definitely a lot of like overlapping themes here. And yeah, just really focusing on the importance of those 3 C's, the communities and cultural protocols, especially in the creation and development of a Mukurtu site and a digital project, even like determining like who should be involved, who is going to be contributing, who's going to be our audience, and how can we like work together to kind of outline these things, and also keep in mind that things can change. You know, a community that starts out one way can be edited and changed to adapt to what is needed. So some other kind of broad considerations that would apply to that situation as well as others.
Thanks, Michael and Lotus, for that combo response. That was great. Very kind of a tricky question, but thank you for tackling it. We'll bounce back to a question from the chat from Javier Stel Fresquez. And this relates a little bit to what you had mentioned earlier, Lotus, about compensating community members. Is there any integration of payment platforms to compensate communities and culture bearers who continue to who contribute to narratives, attribution, etc.?
That's an interesting question. There is definitely not any integration of payment platforms within Mukurtu. Like that's not something that we have supported. I don't believe it's on any roadmaps. One thing I would mention is like the rich text fields do exist. So I don't know if, you know, there would be some possibility with HTML and CSS there, but there's nothing like outlined from the Mukurtu team to provide that at the current time. One other related question that we've gotten is just, you know, communities who might have like an e-commerce platform that they like kind of want on the same, and that's something that we also are not something that we have planned to integrate.
Got it, great. Back to the anonymous questions side. What is the storage limit for each portal? Are users able to download audio from the site?
So on each of the digital heritage items, you can have you see the display of the media, and then below that there's the access media button. So that would bring you out to yeah, depending on if it was an image, just a larger version, and then if it was the audio, then a separate page, a browser tab with that audio. So you are able to you know, left click and save as for that content, and that is possible, but there's not really like a big button to click and download media. And people do often ask, like, can you turn that off? How can we prevent people from downloading the media? And something that we definitely share is like that you can restrict media. You can have the media itself under a private protocol while the item metadata is in a public protocol. So that could be a way of considering that. But at the same time, definitely advising people that, you know, anything that you are uploading online, there is a risk of people of downloading. So even, you know, even if it's an image and there was no way of you know, saving as, could still take a screenshot. So we often like kind of go through that conversation with people around that question. That might have been more information that's needed, but yes, you're able to download media content.
Great, no, that was very thorough, much appreciated. I think, you know, we'll do one final question before we wrap up, and this is another anonymous question. I'm assuming that it is possible, but if a non-Indigenous institution were to collaborate with a TCU, how might two complementary but separate collections be maintained? In other words, collections on separate local servers, possibly? Yeah. Any thoughts about that?
It's like 2 collections on 2 different Mukurtu sites. Is that the question?
2 complementary but separate collections.
Mm-hmm. So one part of that answer might be thinking about like the Plateau People's web portal, for example. So within that, folks can decide to share back content with the partners that they are working with on that site. So it is a shared site, but then, you know, for example, WSU Libraries has a content DM website. And if one of the tribal representatives, you know, decided that they wanted to correct a name, both on the Mukurtu side of things, both on the portal as well as in the original metadata, that would be a process like outside of the platform, right? Like that would be a process between the 2 institutions to share back the information that needed to be changed or corrected. And does that answer the question?
I think so, and because it's an anonymous question,
oh right,
we might have to leave it there.
Yeah, that sounds good. And then I just saw a message from Diana saying I may have missed the first part of the last question, if there's a storage limit for each Mukurtu site.
Yes.
Or for the portal maybe. So for storage limits, it's based on hosting. So it would be based on your internal hosting or the amount of hosting that you're paying for through an external hosting provider. So one of the ones that we recommend, the Reclaim hosting, they offer different levels of storage. So yeah, definitely a good idea to like estimate how much storage you think you might need in your first year and your first 3 years, and kind of make decisions according to that. And also that, you know, video and audio can take up a large chunk of your space. So that's why we do have some integration with Vimeo, YouTube, as well as audio platforms to be able to embed things while using a separate hosting storage for those files.
Great. All right. So I think it's about time to wrap things up. Thank you, Lotus, for your fantastic presentation and answering all these questions. Thanks to everyone who could join us and for all of your great questions. We'll make this a recording available as soon as we are able. So be on the lookout for that. And I'd encourage everyone to stop by our next session for the Mukurtu workshop and panel event next Friday, same time. So again, thanks for coming, and I hope you have a great rest of your Friday. Okay,
Thank
everyone.
you, everyone.